Every summer, my parents go away for a few weeks to our vacation home in Savannah, Georgia. That leaves me home alone with our 2 cats. We live on a canal. My dad has a Boston Whaler and 2 jet skis in the yard. Across the canal from us is marsh, and further down the canal is a park. Not a lot of boat traffic passes our yard as a result, and it's very private and secluded. Our house is decently big, but I feel like my dad probably spent more money on the boat than he did our house, to be honest. It draws a lot of attention. I love when my parents would be gone for their trip, especially since I'm off during the summer and have free reign to do whatever I want, and have over whoever I want, just no parties. I had the girl I was seeing for a little bit over to hang out in the backyard one night. We sat in the hot tub, and when the hot tub cycled off and it went quiet out, I heard something from the canal. Sometimes you'd hear fish or birds splashing in the water, but this sounded more rhythmic. I stood up and saw in the canal someone kayaking by. I couldn't see anything more than that, though. No features, I couldn't even see what they were wearing. A little unusual this hour at night and this far up the canal, but it is a public canal nonetheless, and it was not a cause for alarm. I did tell the girl I was with how unusual it was, though. Little did I know that that was not the last time I'd be seeing that person. Later that night, when we were in bed upstairs, I had the windows closed because the AC was on. The windows in my room faced the canal in the backyard. I had turned off the lamp next to my bed and was watching The Sopranos with the girl who was sleeping over. Suddenly, a white light was flashing through the window. It was moving around sporadically. Both of our reactions at first were simply, "What the actual hell is that?" She asked if that's a helicopter light, which I dismissed immediately because that was silly. I said, "I think it's a flashlight." I turned off the TV to bring total darkness in the room. Then I got off the bed and stepped just to the side of the window so I could peek out and see where the light was coming from. I saw. It was someone waving a flashlight from the canal. In fact, it looked like that person on the kayak again. The girl I was with, who I'll just call Jane from here on out, asked me what it was. I told her it's that guy from the kayak before, waving a flashlight through the window. She asked why is he doing that, and how did he know we were in this specific room? I told her it must have been because he saw the light from the TV screen through the window. He already knew someone was in here. Having a girl in the room gave me that basic, primal urge to act like a man and not be scared, so I opened the window and yelled out, "What do you want?" A weak-sounding man yelled back, "Please, I need help." I yelled back, "Are you hurt or lost?" He yelled back, "I'm injured and I can't get out of the kayak." I looked at Jane and asked her opinion of what I should do. She said I should go out there and help him. I called back out to the man, "Do you want me to call 911? And he called back, "No, I just need help getting out of this kayak." I called back to the man, "Okay, I'll come out." I closed the window, then I sighed and told Jane to wish me luck. She wasn't wearing much clothes in the bed, so I wasn't going to make her get dressed and go out there with me. I threw on a t-shirt and ran downstairs. Then I threw on my slides and opened the back door. I turned on the backyard lights and stepped outside, and that's when I heard a blood-curdling scream from upstairs. It was Jane, screaming my name. I looked around the yard in response in a panic, and I saw a man running towards me from the canal. I ran inside and slammed the door shut and locked it, with only 2 seconds to spare because there was a giant bang on the door, followed by the man trying to twist the doorknob open. I grabbed the entire knife holder from the kitchen and brought it upstairs. I locked my bedroom door, and Jane told me she saw that man sneaking up on me the second I turned on the lights outside. He was no old, weak, injured man. He was this big-looking guy. We were paranoid that he was lurking around the property still. I called my dad to tell him what happened, and he told me I should be on the phone with the police right now, not him. So I called 911, and the police came, did a search of the property, did a report, then rang some of the neighbors' doorbells. Any of my neighbors who answered didn't see anything. The strange part was that the kayak was gone, which led me to believe he ran back to get it and likely ran into the marsh. The fact that we have a decently nice house and an $800,000 boat in the backyard in a secluded, tucked-away spot of the canal probably made us look like an easy target to break into that night. That person may have even somehow knew that my parents were away. Scary of how I didn't have a girl over that night. I wouldn't have made it back inside in time to lock the door. If you want to see a bonus summertime horror story exclusive to my Apple Music, Amazon Unlimited, and Spotify, click the link in the description. Also, thank you to Parabooks for sponsoring this video. In the summertime, I like to spend my time doing outdoor activities. In the summer, I stay with my family in Monton, Pennsylvania. We have 2 acres of land, a little shooting range in the yard, a quad, 2 dirt bikes, and trails through the woods right by the house that I often ride through. One warm but cloudy day, I had nothing to do, so I wanted to get some exercise and took my bicycle out. I have a mountain bike at my parents' house, so I prefer to take it on the trail rather than the roads. I stepped outside and looked at the clouds. It just looks so cool, yellow sky peeking through the dark, stormy-looking clouds just a bit. I could smell the approaching summer storm. I love the atmosphere. I checked the forecast before leaving, and I figured I'd have a quick half-hour bike ride before it started raining. Even if I got a little wet, I wouldn't care. I set off from the property towards the trail in the woods. I could feel and hear the gust fronts, and I loved it. This was my favorite kind of weather to bike in. Much of the ride starting out was uphill, and the way back is mostly downhill, which works out nicely. The uphill eventually peaks around a bit of an opening in the woods. That's where I usually stop to rest for a bit. When I got to the opening on this dark day, as usual, I stopped to catch my breath after all the uphill pedaling. I browsed through my phone for a minute, looking at texts and such, and that's when the sound of the wind and all the weeds blowing suddenly stopped, and it was dead silent. There was no wind anymore. I looked around, shocked and kind of intrigued. I'd never seen such a heavy gust front suddenly stop out of nowhere. I looked all around me, suddenly getting an uneasy feeling. I was starting to think I was hearing some kind of voice, a very high-pitched voice at that. I hoped it was just an animal. The darkness under the clouds and trees, the silence, the sky, and now the sounds I was hearing all coming together were creating an unexplainably creepy setting. And then, perhaps because of the dead silence now, I was able to hear sticks cracking not far away. And when I looked in that direction, I saw something about 30 to 40 feet from me in the trees, in the direction where the trail continues to go. The best I could describe what I was seeing was some humanoid-looking figure hunched over as if it were hiding, stalking me like I were prey. And at that moment, it started to rain, hard. The sound of the raindrops hitting the leaves above killed the unbearable silence. At this moment, I turned and kettled as fast as I could back to the top of the hill and allowed gravity to help bring me home faster, the whole time scared to look behind me. Lightning started to flash and thunder started to crash. In any other scenario, I'd think this was awesome, but I had just witnessed something unexplainable. I made it home, put my bike in the shed, and went inside. I was so shook and out of breath I didn't even bother explaining to anyone. I went upstairs and crawled into bed, and that night I had a nightmare of the incidents, seeing a demonic figure in the woods in the middle of the night floating towards me. I woke up with my heart racing, happy it was just a dream. It was an all-around disturbing day and night.
Jack Carson, a seasoned trucker with a penchant for late-night hauls, was about to embark on a journey that would forever alter his perception of reality. His destination was a small, obscure town known as Shadow's End, nestled in a remote part of the mountains, shrouded in unsettling folklore and tales of the unexplained. The job seemed simple enough. Deliver a sealed, unmarked container to an address at the very edge of Shadow's End. The pay was unusually good, the kind that made Jack overlook his usual cautiousness about vague job details. As he set off under the cloak of night, the weather was calm, but there was a charge in the air, an unspoken tension that made his skin prickle. Jack chalked it up to the excitement of a new route and a hefty paycheck. Hours into the drive, Jack noticed something odd. His usually reliable radio was picking up strange interference, a mix of static and what sounded like whispering voices. No matter how he fiddled with the dials, the eerie whispers persisted, growing more intense as he drove further into the wilderness. The road to Shadow's End was long and winding, flanked by dense forests that seemed to absorb all light, casting deep shadows across the asphalt. Jack's headlights barely penetrated the darkness, creating an oppressive tunnel vision as he navigated the serpentine road. It was past midnight when Jack finally arrived at Shadow's End. The town was unnervingly quiet, its buildings old and weathered, with a lingering sense of abandonment. The address on the delivery order led him to an old warehouse at the edge of town, standing alone like a forgotten relic. As he approached the warehouse, his truck's headlights illuminated a figure standing in the road. Jack slammed on the brakes, heart racing. The figure was a woman, her appearance ghostly in the dim light, her eyes hollow with an unspoken sorrow. She didn't speak, only pointed towards the warehouse before vanishing into the night. Shaken, Jack drove to the warehouse, unease gnawing at him. The building was larger than it appeared from a distance, its walls covered in vines and age. The large delivery door was ajar, inviting him in. Inside, the warehouse was cavernous, with rows of abandoned shelves and a thick layer of dust covering everything. In the center, a loading area awaited Jack's delivery. As he unloaded the container, a chilling sensation washed over him, the feeling of being watched. Suddenly, the warehouse lights flickered and went out, plunging Jack into darkness. His heart pounded in his chest as he fumbled for his flashlight. The beam of light cut through the darkness, revealing nothing but the empty aisles and the silent container he had delivered. As he made his way back to his truck, a soft, childlike giggle echoed through the warehouse. Jack froze, the sound sending a shiver down his spine. It was coming from the direction of the container. Jack hurried to his truck, the feeling of urgency overwhelming. He climbed in, locking the doors, and started the engine, but the truck wouldn't move. It was as if an invisible force was holding it in place. He glanced in the rearview mirror and gasped. Standing behind his truck was a group of shadowy figures, their features indistinct, but their intent clear. They didn't want him to leave. Jack tried the radio for help, but all he got was static and those same unsettling whispers. He realized then that the stories about Shadow's End were more than just tales. They were warnings. In a desperate attempt, Jack decided to confront whatever was in the container. Armed with nothing but his flashlight and a crowbar, he stepped out of his truck and approached the container. His hands trembled as he pried it open. The container was empty, or so it seemed at first. But as he shone his flashlight inside, he saw it. A faint, spectral figure of a child, its eyes glowing faintly in the dark. The child spoke in a voice that was both eerie and sad. "You must leave now, before it's too late." Jack didn't need to be told twice. He rushed back to his truck, and to his relief, it started. He drove out of the warehouse, the shadowy figures parting to let him pass, their silent stares burning into his memory. As Jack left Shadow's End behind, the sun began to rise, casting light over the landscape that had been so menacing in the darkness. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had narrowly escaped something malevolent. The drive back was a blur, his mind reeling from the night's events. When he finally arrived home, the sun was high in the sky, and the normalcy of the day felt surreal. Jack never spoke of what happened in Shadow's End, but he knew he could never forget. The town and its secrets remained etched in his mind, a haunting reminder of the night he encountered the unknown. In the weeks that followed, Jack found himself unable to shake the memories of Shadow's End. The whispering voices, the spectral child, and the shadowy figures haunted his dreams, turning his nights into restless journeys through his own fears. Determined to find answers, Jack began researching the town. He discovered that Shadow's End was once a bustling mining community, but after a series of unexplained disappearances and accidents, it had become a ghost town, shrouded in rumors of curses and supernatural events. Jack's curiosity and his need for closure led him back to the road to Shadow's End. This time, he was prepared, armed with recording equipment and a determination to uncover the truth. As he approached the town, the familiar sense of dread returned, but he pressed on. He reached the warehouse again, its ominous presence more intimidating in the daylight. Inside, he set up his equipment, hoping to capture any evidence of the supernatural. As he waited, the atmosphere grew heavy, the silence oppressive. Then, the whispers returned, more coherent this time, speaking in hushed, urgent tones. "Leave, before the shadows return," they warned. Jack felt a cold breeze, and the temperature in the warehouse dropped suddenly. As night fell, the warehouse was filled with an unnatural darkness. Jack's equipment flickered, malfunctioning under an unseen force. Then, out of the shadows, the figures appeared again, their forms more defined. They were miners, he realized, their faces etched with sorrow and pain. The spectral child appeared once more, its presence bringing a calm to the chaos. "They can't leave. Trapped by the tragedy that befell us all," it said, its voice echoing around the warehouse. Jack understood then that these were the souls of the miners who had died in a catastrophic accident long ago, their spirits bound to the place of their untimely demise. Determined to help, Jack delved deeper into the town's history. He learned of a mining explosion that had been covered up. the lives lost deemed a necessary sacrifice for the town's prosperity. But the disaster had cursed the town, leading to its eventual abandonment. Jack found old records, names of the deceased, and personal items left behind in the town. He gathered them, bringing them to the warehouse as a gesture of acknowledgement and respect. That night, as he laid out the items, the atmosphere in the warehouse changed. The miners' spirits, recognizing their belongings, began to manifest more clearly, their whispers turning into words of gratitude. With the help of the spectral child, who Jack learned was the mine owner's son who had died trying to warn the miners, he conducted a makeshift ceremony to honor the miners and acknowledge their unjust deaths. As he spoke their names aloud, a light began to fill the warehouse, growing brighter with each name. The miners' spirits started to fade, their faces showing relief and peace as they were finally released from their earthly bonds. The spectral child smiled at Jack, a look of thanks in its glowing eyes, before it too disappeared, the light engulfing the warehouse in a blinding flash. When the light receded, Jack found himself alone in the warehouse, the oppressive atmosphere gone. The sun was rising, casting warm rays through the broken windows, illuminating the once dark space. Jack left the warehouse, feeling a weight lifted from his shoulders. As he drove away from Shadow's End, he saw the town in a new light. No longer a place of shadows and whispers, but a silent monument to the past. Back on the road, Jack carried with him not just the memory of Shadow's End, but a sense of purpose. He had faced the unknown, confronted the shadows of history, and in doing so, had freed the trapped souls of a forgotten tragedy. His experience at Shadow's End became a story he would occasionally share with fellow truckers, a reminder that sometimes the scariest roads lead to the most unexpected destinations. And though he continued his life on the road, Jack never forgot the night he spent in that ghostly town, the night he faced his fears and uncovered a hidden truth in the heart of the mountains.